and welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into what is becoming one of the most talked about storylines heading into the 2026 WNBA season. And that is the growing tension between Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White and the biggest name in women's basketball, Caitlin Clark. Fever fans are absolutely fired up right now, and honestly, once you hear everything that's been said over the past few weeks, you'll understand exactly why. Make sure you drop a like on this video to help support the channel. It genuinely means a lot. Now, let's get into it. Alright, so let's start from the very beginning, because this whole thing blew up right after the 2026 WNBA draft. The Indiana Fever used their first-round pick, number 10 overall, on Raven Johnson, the point guard. Out of South Carolina, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, two-time national champion. No real argument there. But here's where things got interesting. After the selection, Stephanie White steps up to the microphone, and a reporter asks her a totally straightforward question. How does all this new backcourt depth, with Raven Johnson and Ty Harris now in the mix, help the team going into 2026, especially after last year when injuries destroyed the Fever's season and Caitlin Clark played in just 13 games? Now, how do you think Stephanie White answered that? You'd expect her to say something like, "This takes pressure off Caitlin. This frees her up to do the best possible position," right? That's the obvious answer. Instead, here's what she actually said.
With the first pick in the 2026 WNBA draft, the Dallas Wings select.
She opens with, "We're not speaking those into existence anymore." Fine, that's clearly a reference to last year's injury nightmare. She doesn't want to jinx anything, that part I get. But then she lists off her backcourt trio, and she describes Ty Harris first, Caitlin Clark second, frames the whole thing around giving Kelsey Mitchell more rest. And there is zero acknowledgement that Caitlin Clark is the reason Indiana has all 44 games nationally televised this season. Zero acknowledgement that Clark is the engine of that entire offense. Not even a mention of her by name in a positive framing. It's almost like she's describing a rotation piece, not a generational player. And Fever fans, they caught it immediately. Media went absolutely crazy after this press conference. Let me show you some of what people were saying on X. Steph White really hates Caitlin Clark. Ha 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 ha. White would love to get rid of CC. She'd rather have a defensive-minded PG like Raven. Now look, some of these are obviously over the top. Fans on X are always going to go to the extreme. But what's interesting here is that this isn't just random trolls. These are Indiana Fever fans. The people who buy tickets, who watch every nationally televised game, who have been riding with this team because of Caitlin Clark. When your own fan base is reacting like this after a post-draft press conference, that tells you something. The trust is not fully there. This isn't even the first time people have raised eyebrows at the White-Clark dynamic. Not even close. Because here's the thing, there is a pattern here, and we need to talk about it. Go back to the 2025 season. Clark returned from a serious groin injury against the Golden State Valkyries. Big moment, right? Her first game back, the whole world is watching. Everyone wants to see her bounce back. The Fever got blown out 80-61. It was rough, and Clark admitted it. She said the team struggled. She said there were personnel issues. She said it was a tough night. Okay, that happens. But then Stephanie White went in front of the cameras, and here's what she said. Your best player just came back from injury. She played her first game in weeks. And your public response is that the team's competitive fire wasn't there? That's a tough look, coach. And then earlier this month, right at the start of training camp, White was asked about managing Clark's reps going into the 2026 season. Here's what she said. Now, on its own, that sounds responsible. You don't want your star getting hurt again in training camp. Fine. But when you stack that on top of the draft press conference and the 2025 post-game comments and everything else, fans are starting to see a theme. And that theme is Stephanie White consistently downplays Caitlin Clark in public, whether she means to or not. And then there's the Raven Johnson storyline, because that adds a whole other layer to this situation that you have to know about. If you remember back in 2024, the NCAA National Championship game, Iowa versus South Carolina. Caitlin Clark and Raven Johnson on opposite teams, and there was a moment in that game where Clark straight up waved off Johnson. She had the ball, Johnson was open for a three, and Clark basically told her to move. It became a viral moment. It was seen as Clark being selfish or dismissive, depending on which side you were on. 2026, and Stephanie wound and brings her to Indiana to play alongside. Caitlin Clark now could be a great basketball decision. Johnson averaged 9.9 points on almost 49% shooting in her senior year. She had 5.1 assists per game. She won SEC Defensive Player of the Year. The basketball case is there. But Fever fans who are deep in the Clark world were not happy. Some saw this as a deliberate move, like bringing in someone with a history against Clark to challenge her in the locker room. Others thought it was just tone deaf. So here's where we land. Is there a real problem between Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark? The players say no. Clark herself hasn't complained publicly about a single thing, and White has shown flashes of being genuinely invested in Clark's well-being. But the way White communicates publicly about her franchise player, it keeps landing wrong. And in the social media age, optics matter just as much as reality. The Fever open their season on May 9th at home against Paige Bueckers and the Dallas Wings. All 44 games are nationally televised. The entire country is going to be watching. If this team comes out of the gate clicking, if Clark is healthy, playing with joy, dropping 25 a night in transition, and White is giving her every opportunity to shine, this whole storyline disappears overnight. But if the Fever stumble early, if there are any signs of friction between the coaching staff and Clark on the court, this is going to become the biggest story in the WNBA all season long. So I want to know what you think. Is Stephanie White quietly undermining Caitlin Clark, or is the fan base completely overreacting? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one. If you're new here and you want WNBA coverage like this every single day, subscribe, because we are just getting started with this 2026 season. I'll see you in the next one. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving deep into what is becoming one of the most talked about storylines heading into the 2026 WNBA season. Is the growing tension between Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White and the biggest name in women's basketball, Caitlin Clark. Fever fans are absolutely fired up right now, and honestly, once you hear everything that's been said over the past few weeks, you'll understand exactly why. Make sure you drop a like on this video to help support the channel. It genuinely means a lot. Now, let's get into it. Alright, so let's start from the very beginning, because this whole thing blew up right after the 2026 WNBA draft. The Indiana Fever used their first-round pick, number 10 overall, on Raven Johnson, the point guard. Out of South Carolina, SEC Defensive Player of the Year, two-time national champion. On paper, solid pick. No real argument there. But here's where things got interesting. After the selection, Stephanie White steps up to the microphone